Gospel lesson this morning is Luke 19, 28 through 40. After Jesus had said this, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. As he approached Bethphage and Bethany at the hill called the Mount of Olives, he sent two of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you untying it?' say, 'The Lord needs it.'" Those who were sent ahead went and found just as he had told them. As they were untying the colt, its owners asked them, "Why are you untying the colt?" They replied, "The Lord needs it." They brought it to Jesus, threw their cloaks on the colt, and put Jesus on it. As he went along, people spread their cloaks along the road. When he came near the place where the road goes down to the Mount of Olives, the whole crowd of disciples began joyful to praise God in loud voices for all the miracles they have seen. "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory to the highest." Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, rebuke your disciples." "I tell you," he replied, "if they keep quiet, these stones will cry out."
What a day it was. That day of the march on Jerusalem. The people in Jerusalem were there for the Passover. And the Passover was about freedom from oppression. And with the Romans, the people were waiting for the Messiah, the King, to come to get away, to get back to God, to get back to a just and righteous world. And so Jesus rides in to all of that expectation and all of that hope, and the people waving the palm branches. By the way, the palm branch is a flag. It is the symbol of the Jewish nation, of Israel. It appears on coins representing Israel. And the people waving the palm branch are therefore waving a flag. And it's kind of a subversive thing to do. It'd be like somebody waving an American flag at a Russian May Day parade. You know, it would have that kind of effect. When they got to the city, they would hand the palms to little children because the Roman soldiers wouldn't dare harm a child. That's what the palms are all about. We went to Jerusalem, to the Holy Land in 1990-something. We went there and we stayed at the Seven Arches Hotel, which sits on top of the Mount of Olives. And we look out a window and we could see the city of Jerusalem and the Dome of the Rock, which is exactly where the temple was, over the same rock. It's a holy place in three different religions, therefore. And one day we were hopped in the bus. We were going to go, and it only went about 3, 4, 5 blocks, and it stopped. We got out, and we came to a place where a T in the intersection, the road went straight down. And in Mark's gospel, he explains exactly what that looks like. When he came near the place where the road goes down the Mount of Olives, and it did, it went just straight down. That's where it began to happen. Disciples in front, disciples behind, people lining this narrow road as they sang their hosannas and welcoming the King. And someplace along there, people were complaining to Jesus. And he said, "If everybody is silent, even the rocks themselves will cry out." You have to understand that as you go down the road, on the left is a cemetery, a huge cemetery. You see, it's a long-held faith that when the resurrection comes, the general resurrection, when everybody is lifted out of the graves, they'll start near Jerusalem and work their way out. So if people want to be first in line, so they bury them there in the cemetery. So right there on the left, when Jesus said, "Even the rocks themselves," he was probably pointing to the left. On the other side, on the right side, was the Garden of Gethsemane, where there are trees today that date back to Jesus' time. And at Jesus' time, they probably dated back all the way to David conquering the city, and even to when Abraham brought Isaac to that very hill where the Dome of the Rock and the temple, where the Dome of the Rock is and the temple was, brought him there to offer him to God as a sacrifice. So this is a holy and powerful place filled with ancient memories and ancient faith. But there was more than one of these going on, of these processions going on. You see, Pilate was coming to Jerusalem. Pilate's office, Pilate's capital, was at Caesarea Maritima on the Mediterranean coast. But at Passover time, with all of these memories and all of this talk about freedom from oppression, people would get riled up, and Pilate had to come to keep track of everything, try to keep a lid on everything. A number of years before, there had been some outbreak, and the soldiers had killed several thousand men, women, and children rather indiscriminately, and that caused an even bigger problem. And Pilate was there to watch out, because this is the time when people are full of expectation that the Messiah, God's chosen ruler or God's chosen general, will come and free the people. And that causes all kinds of problems. So there were 2 parades going on. Yeah. This is a clip I made.
The rabble to be quiet. We anticipate a riot. This common crowd is much too loud. Tell the mob who sing your song that they are fools and they are wrong. They are a curse. They should disperse.
Why waste your breath moaning at the crowd? Nothing can be done to stop the shouting. If every tongue was still, the noise would still continue. The rocks and stones themselves would start to sing. Not for me alone. Sing out for yourselves, for you are blessed. There is not one of you who cannot win the kingdom. The slow, the suffering, the quick, the dead.
Pilate was played by Charlton Heston. I stole that from the Ben-Hur movie. And then I thought, it wasn't just then. It's now. There are lots of processions of power. Because the powers that be, especially those that believe in empire and a nation by the elite, for the elite, of the elite, want to remind everybody exactly who they are and where they belong. It's important because that was a procession of the threat or the delivery of death. The same for Nazi Germany, for Soviet Russia. And Jesus came in from the other side. Jesus entered the world and that moment to be the king, but not the king you'd expect. He is a very sad prophet riding on a donkey. He's accepting these adulations not because he thinks he's great. As Paul said, he put aside his godhood and became like you and me. And yet it was important to mark that he was the Messiah by riding into Jerusalem. Let's have a slide or two here. So let's take the next one. And one more. That's what happens. He told us what's going on. Sing me your songs, but not for me alone. Sing out for yourselves, for you are blessed. There is not one of you who cannot win the kingdom. The slow, the suffering, the quick, the dead. That's a great line from Jesus Christ Superstar. Jesus brings it home. This is not about power and trickle down and top down control. This is about bottom up abundance. Jesus comes with a power, but it's not like the power of this world. It's not like the power of this world, for it is the power of love. We talked about scarcity and abundance last week. The world runs on scarcity, but Jesus brought us a new vision of what it's like to live where there is abundance. It's not stuff necessarily. It is in our hearts and our minds and our vision that we see the abundance of God's gift and our call to share that abundance in love, in prayer, in our gifts.